Welcome back. In this video, we will talk a little bit more about the theory of verbal short-term memory and aphasia. In the last video, we went over the various aspects of the interactive activation model of word processing. In this video, we will look at how the IA model can help us better understand the role of verbal short-term memory in aphasia. So what is it that goes wrong when a person with aphasia can't produce or understand a word? What exactly is aphasia according to the IA model? The IA model proposes that aphasia is an impairment of the activation processes that support word access and retrieval. Difficulties can arise at the semantic, the lexical, or the phonological levels. Deficits can also be described in terms of two processing parameters, strength of activation and duration of activation. But more about this later. A key concept of the IA model is that the language impairment in aphasia and the verbal short-term memory impairment in aphasia have a common source. They are both due to an impaired ability to activate and maintain words over time. In other words, if I can't keep the word cat activated long enough or strongly enough, there are several things I won't be able to do. I won't be able to say the word, I won't be able to understand it, and I won't be able to remember it. This activation problem accounts for both aphasia and for verbal short-term memory impairments that are observed in aphasia. So how do we know that aphasia and verbal short-term memory are related? The IA model gives us a theory for that relationship, but does the theory bear out in the actual behavior of people with aphasia? The answer is yes. Research has shown that nearly everyone with aphasia has reduced verbal short-term memory capacity. Furthermore, the more severe the aphasia, the more severe the short-term memory deficit. Also, in recovery, the verbal short-term memory span improves as word processing abilities improve. And lastly, there is some evidence that treatment of verbal short-term memory can lead to an improvement of language abilities. The data in this table compare the verbal short-term memory spans of people with and without aphasia. As you know, a normal short-term memory span is 7 items plus or minus 2. In other words, somewhere between 5 and 9. However, for people with aphasia, their verbal short-term memory spans range from 0 to 5, with an average of about 3 or 4 items. And just a reminder, verbal short-term memory is a domain-specific process, meaning that verbal short-term memory abilities can be different than nonverbal short-term memory abilities. And in fact, this is the case in aphasia, where nonverbal short-term memory is often normal, or at least better than verbal short-term memory. We know that word processing involves both activation strength and activation duration. In aphasia, either or both of these parameters can be impaired. In the first case, the person with aphasia will be slow to process words due to the extra time needed to achieve a strong enough signal. Or the activation may be so weak that they aren't able to access the word at all. They may say something like, "It's on the tip of my tongue." In the second case, the person with aphasia won't be able to maintain the activation long enough to produce or understand the word. They often say something like, "I had it, but I just lost the word." Here are some links to articles for those who are interested in reading more about this topic. You have now heard about the theory behind verbal short-term memory and aphasia, highlighting in particular the interactive activation model of word processing and reviewing the role that verbal short-term memory plays in language and aphasia. The next 3 videos will detail how the Tulsa test assesses aphasia in relationship to verbal short-term memory, starting with some unique features of the Tulsa. See you then.